just to see him again.
Who?
Leatherface.
I don't even know what to say about this movie, honestly. I don't know if I've ever been disappointed in a movie more than this one. Welcome back, Screenaholics. Today we are doing a review of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 that was put out on Netflix a couple months ago. And I know I'm late to the party on this one. I kind of waited around to watch it just because I knew it was going to be bad. I saw the reviews, how bad it was. Rotten Tomatoes, it's like a 27%. I mean, just everybody I saw that watched it, I didn't see a single person that actually liked this movie. But I finally got around to doing it, and, well, man, they were 100% right. This movie is absolute garbage. And before we get into this, I don't want to, just put down anybody's opinion, whether they liked it or not. If you liked this movie, then fine. I guess I'm not one to sit here and tell you what you can and can't like, especially when it comes to horror. But, I mean, if you know me, you know I'm more of a horror snob, and yes, I admit that. I admit that all the time to people that, I like certain types of horror, and I don't like other types of horror, and there's certain things in horror genre that I don't enjoy. And this movie had a lot of that in it. But first off, I'm going to try to do a spoiler-free, and then we'll get spoilers later on into the review. I'm just going to start off with, some stuff that I really don't like and what they went about doing it without spoiling a lot. And then I'll go into a little bit more detail about the stuff that really just turned me off of this film to the point where I couldn't even shut my brain off and enjoy it as what it was. I just kept analyzing it for what it was. I just couldn't just shut off the brain and say, hey, it's a freaking slasher movie on Netflix. Have fun with it. Make sure to like and subscribe while you're here. And then comment down below and let me know what you think about this movie. And what is your favorite Texas Chainsaw movie? I would love to know. Minus Texas Chainsaw 2. I know that is a very far reach. I know that's not everybody's favorite Texas Chainsaw. Me personally, I love the movie. I love how goofy it is. It's very self-aware how goofy it is, but at the same time, I love the characters. Like Chop Top, played by Bill Moseley, is probably, in my opinion, my favorite horror character of all time. Like, Chop Top is awesome. He is so weird and creepy and just says the right things. And that movie just, in its own, is a kind of its own little bubble in the Texas Chainsaw franchise that, I don't know, it feels like the original, but it also doesn't feel like the original. And I love it in that way. Moving on to this one, though. And let me say, before I really start, my favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was a remake. Out of all the remakes or the sequels, whatever you want to call them, the legacy films, whatever you want to call it. Especially with this one, which they said was a sequel and not really a sequel to me. We'll get into that later. But my favorite one out of them was Jessica Biel's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it came out in 2002, I believe. If I'm wrong, correct me. But that movie I saw in theaters and when I was younger, and that movie really hit me. That first opening scene was very scary with the police officers investigating the house. And that's the way I like to see my Texas Chainsaw. I like to see it a little bit dirty and gritty and dark. I don't like to see a movie that isn't that way. And this movie wasn't that way. Not saying there wasn't dirty and grittiness to it, because there was. The kills in this movie, let's be honest, are, brutal. For the most part, very, very brutal. And I really liked that ambulance scene. That ambulance scene, that first kill is just gnarly. It's just gnarly. It just shows the strength of Leatherface and just the brutalness. And I really thought with that first scene it was going to save the rest of the movie. Because it first started off, I was like, no, this is already bad. But that first kill, I was like, man, this actually might have some potential to go somewhere, because it was pretty brutal. But it wasn't enough to save the movie. The rest of the kills weren't enough to save the movie. And honestly, as brutal and awesome where the rest of the kills were, they never lived up to that first kill. That first kill was still the best kill of the whole entire movie. that was the singular thing I liked about this movie, the kills. That was pretty much it. There's nothing else I liked about this movie. And as I dig deeper into it and think about all the stuff I don't like about this movie, it really puts into perspective about where does this really rank as far as Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I mean, in my opinion, this is probably tied for the worst Texas Chainsaw movie ever made with Leatherface. And, you know, at least that movie had some redeemable parts. Yeah, it was stupid. Yeah, it was dumb to have the one kid end up being Leatherface when it was obviously the other kid the entire time. And you were like, yeah, that's going to be Leatherface the entire time. And you wanted that kid to be Leatherface because he portrayed Leatherface how actually Leatherface is. But it ended up not being him. But at least there was like some stuff when he was at home and how it tied into the family, the Sawyer family, that, you know, kind of gave it a really little bit of redemption in my books. But this one was just as bad and maybe worse. I could end up thinking this movie is worse than Leatherface and the worst Texas Chainsaw movie ever made. And even Texas Chainsaw 3D, in my opinion, is better. I mean, as a better sequel. I mean, at least at the beginning of Texas Chainsaw 3D, they're at the house with the family, and Bill Moseley is actually there. He's not playing Chop Top. He's at least playing his brother at the beginning of that movie, just like Chop Top was his brother, and at least set around the house and the family and stuff like that. It at least felt like a try to be a sequel, not just, we're going to call this a sequel. Overall, I feel like this is just a big cash grab for Netflix. And I'll explain that in the best way possible on why I think that is. Now, I'm sure all of you guys know and have seen the new Halloween movies, and you know that they had Laurie Strode come back and be this badass, and she was going to come back and kill Michael. And that's the point of, like, the new kind of sequels, they want to call them, of the Halloween movies, which in my opinion have been, okay. They've been mediocre horror movies. They've been alright. I'm not a huge Halloween fan, but nothing will ever live up to, like, John Carpenter's first Halloween or Rob Zombie's Halloween, in my opinion. Nothing will even become close to either of those two. So these movies have been okay, but you could definitely tell in this movie that they straight up just sat in a pitch meeting, Netflix did, and said, hey, look what Halloween's doing. How about we do that Texas Chainsaw Massacre? And they did that so poorly, though. Because you pulled in a character from the original movie that doesn't make sense to even be there. You know, if this girl, who is Sally from the original movie, if what happened to her actually happened in the first movie, why would she even stick around anywhere near that town? Or even anywhere near where Leatherface would be? She wouldn't even be in Texas in general. She would be so far away from there, it wouldn't even be possible to even think that she would even be able to come back and fight him, or even have a reason to. Like, she just got out of there and survived, and she would never have came back. It's so stupid to think that they went for, hey, let's bring back a character from the first one just to hop on the Halloween bandwagon. And not only just that, and this is like the biggest pet peeve of mine in this movie, and I'll get to other ones. Those are just the side to how big of a mess up this is that Netflix had. This movie straight up shows Leatherface without his mask at the beginning of the movie. Now, here are the issues with that. And this is the below issue before we get to the biggest issue when it comes to that, is when they go to this town, apparently he is living in some house with a lady who ran an orphanage when he was younger. And they showed a picture of, like, the kids in the orphanage, and there was this, like, big kid in with the kids, and it had his face scratched out. And so they're saying that Leatherface grew up in this orphanage, but, I mean, if this is a sequel, then you know he didn't grow up in an orphanage. He lived with his family in the house, on the ranch. He wasn't in a freaking orphanage growing up. That's like the secondary issue to what actually the bigger issue is, because it doesn't even match up with the original. But here is a bigger issue with that. You see his face, and the lady who he's living with, this old lady, has a heart attack because they're kicking her out of her house. And he rides in the ambulance with her, and you can see his face, and the dude is no joke. Looks like he's probably 50 years old, at best. Like, probably like 45. Like, he just looks like a dude with long hair and a beard. Now, I'm sorry, but didn't Texas Chainsaw happen in, like, the early 70s? So 40 plus years ago? So you're telling me that in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this dude was like 10? Leatherface was like 10 when that happened? No. Leatherface was a grown adult in the first movie, 20 years old at the youngest. So 40 years onto that, he would be in his 60s right now. Or older. The dude doesn't look like it. And another thing that I don't know how they didn't even comprehend. The character they have come back, Sally, she looks like she's like 80 in it. And Sally was younger than Leatherface in the first movie. Like, she was a teenager. She was like 17 or 18 years old in the first movie. So you're telling me in like 40 plus years, Leatherface hasn't aged a single bit, but Sally looks like she's like 80 years old plus? That doesn't make any sense, dude. That doesn't make any sense, and it makes me so mad. Makes me so mad. I'm sorry, this movie just really gets to me. It really gets to me. And it's not even just that. I mean, Leatherface doesn't make noises in it. They change his appearance to where he looks normal. And I know they're probably trying to avoid the stuff of the past of him having mental disabilities, but I'm sorry, that is just Leatherface. Leatherface looks like that. Leatherface acts like that. That is his character. And that's how he shows emotion. It's like a good thing. Like, he shows emotion by grunting and making noises, and you can tell when he's sad. There's been points in movies when he's been sad, and you could hear it in his grunting. Or when he's been upset, you can hear in his grunting, and that's just what he does, and they took that away. There's parts where the chainsaw doesn't even make noise. It's like, it's on, but there's no idle sound. Like, it's like they didn't even look it over in, like, post-production. They're like, screw it. Nobody's gonna notice not making any sound. But, again, another big point of why I don't like this movie. It's just the main characters, dude. And like I said, you can just shut your brain off to some movies and take it as it is. It's a slasher film. I don't like these people. I want them to be killed. But you can't even do that with this because they're so annoying and pretentious and just the worst. Now, I love movies with social commentary. You know, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peele's movies and Darren Aronofsky films and Lars Van Trier films and movies that go out of the box and bring in certain social issues and topics and talk about them. I'm completely fine with that. What I'm not fine with is when you try to pull it in to get views and don't do anything with it, or it has nothing to do with the movie, and that's exactly what this does. There are multiple scenes where this happens. At the beginning of the movie, one of the main characters is sitting in the backseat on her phone, and she's scrolling on her phone, there's a bunch of Black Lives Matter stuff. And then it never comes up in the rest of the movie. It's just that one scene that she's looking at her phone, and then it's like, there's nothing else that happens in the entire movie that has to do with that. Along with the whole gun commentary stuff, you don't know where they stand in this movie. Apparently one of the characters got shot in a school shooting, and you see it in a couple times in like flashbacks, but it has nothing to do with the movie. And then at the end of the movie, she grabs like a gun and like is completely cool with guns. Like, are you pro-gun? Are you anti-gun? What are you trying to go for? One of the biggest things is they talk about how like the city is like this classist, horrible place. And they're going to go out to this town that has like 1,000 people in it. It's like a ghost town almost. And they're going to buy all the buildings and they're going to make it nice. And people are going to move into it. And they're going to auction it off so they can turn it into coffee shops and comic book places. But did they not put two and two together that is literally gentrification? They're going to a poor area and kicking people out of their houses so they can make the place good again. Now, they might be doing this on purpose to make you not feel good for these people. But at the same time, it like just kind of comes off as dumb. Like, why would these people go down and buy up all of these places from these poor people and make them nice when they're literally talking about how the city is classist and racist? Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I'm not going to go into the whole depth of what everything happens in this movie. If you want to watch it, watch it. But man, is this movie absolute trash. There is nothing redeemable. The kills are cool. That's about it. The cinematography is nice. That's about it. Netflix, you wasted a bunch of money on a load of garbage that everybody's going to forget. Do me a favor. Never touch Texas Chainsaw Massacre again. And if you want to, ask me or any other Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan to, I don't know, write you a script and give you something better than the horrendous pieces of trash that's been coming out lately over the past, I don't know, 10 years in this series. Nothing will be as good as Jessica Biel's one in 2002. That is the best remake you could have ever made and will ever made. And even the beginning wasn't terrible. Like that next one to that, which was the prequel, wasn't horrible. But I'm telling you, nothing will be better than that Jessica Biel one. So don't even touch it ever again. Unless you know for sure that you have something dark, grimy, scary, and just messed up to put out. If not, don't even bother. We don't need Leatherface getting on a bus and being told that he was going to get canceled and then kill people on Instagram Live. That is the dumbest thing. Please stop doing this, man. I'm telling you, most horror fans don't like it. And if you do like it, then I'm sorry I spoke for you about not liking it. But the whole modern influencer, hey, let's put stuff on live and all of that doesn't feel right in horror. Okay? It doesn't feel right. So the fact that they did that in this is just another reason why this movie is terrible. Absolute terrible. I think you guys can guess how many bottles this is getting. It is getting a big fat 0 out of 5 bottles for me. Not even close to being good. Not even close to being even manageable to watch. All right? It's on Netflix. If you want to watch it, watch it. My opinion, don't waste your time. Go watch the original Texas Chainsaw. Go watch Texas Chainsaw 2. And go watch Jessica Biel's 2002 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Other than that, leave the rest of them alone and go on your way loving Texas Chainsaw Massacre again. This was my review. We'll be back, Screenaholics, with another one soon.